Hello everyone, it's Michael again, and today we're going to be dealing with SmartSuite-Library, understanding loan limits. SmartSuite, you'll find, is one of the most powerful, feature-rich, and most affordable cloud-based hosted library solution for education institutions. And when it comes to loan limits, I don't think you will find that you have a situation where you've got a resource or a patron where you need to set automatic loan limits for that we don't cater for an eventuality like that. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the loan limits on resources. Then we're going to talk about the loan limits on patrons. And then what happens when an item loan limits conflicts with the patron loan limit? So we're going to show you how to bring all of this together. And in the event that you want to override all the default sets, can you do it? And the obvious and straight answer is yes, you can. As an administrator, you have the ability to override all the parameters within the system. However, you might be in a situation where you've set up the parameters and the person sitting at the circulation desk must adhere to those. So let's start with talking about the item limits. So every item on your system has a borrowing limit. So let's do a search. We'll do a search of cat and we're going to bring up all the resources that have the word cat in it, and we'll take cat haiku, especially when you can see here we've got 15 of 18 resources available. That's because 3 of them are either on loan, on reservation and repair, but you've got 18 items in total of that one type of material. Now, this book here, Cat Haiku, can actually have 18 different borrowing parameters, one for each individual one if you wanted to. So when I click on the record and I click on the edit button, you'll only get that edit button if you're an administrator or a librarian at your site. When you click on that, it's going to bring up the catalog record. Now, it doesn't matter what resource you're looking at. All the resources have the same functionality. You've got additional titles, series, authors. What you're looking for is the copy, because that's where you have multiple copies of the one book, Cat Haiku. Okay, in our case, we've got 18 copies of them. And so when I click on copy, there's all my 18 copies. Okay, so even though it says 22, you'll find that some of the copies are missing. 7 is missing and there's others missing, but there's 18 copies in total. Okay, and every individual copy has a loan type and a renewal type. Okay, so you can see this particular copy, fortnightly loan, the next one's fortnightly loan, the next one's a daily loan. Then you got fortnightly, and daily. And on the renewal side, this copy cannot be renewed, but this one can be renewed for a fortnight. This one, even though it's a daily loan, can be renewed as a fortnightly loan. These ones here, which are daily loans, they cannot be renewed under any circumstances. Okay, that's how they defined. So let's have a look at if I want to change the fortnightly loan and the renewal type for my very first copy. If I want to change it, I just click on that and there's all my different loan periods in the system. And I can say I'm changing it to no loan. So that cannot be loaned. And as far as the renewal type goes, okay, there's no renewal for that. And that's how easy it is to change. If I change my mind on the 4th copy here, that's a fortnightly loan. No, that's a daily loan. And that's a renewal of fortnightly. And we go say, no, there's no renewal. Okay, so every catalog record in your system has a loan type and a renewal type. Now, when I click on the loan type or I click on a renewal type, these are the parameters that I've got. Okay, Now, I would like to have a weekly loan. I'd like to have a yearly loan parameter. I'd like to have a semester loan parameter. So how do I add additional loan parameters and additional renewal parameters? Really easy. As an administrator, you click on the menu item up here, you go down to configuration, and you go to your authority file. So whenever you've got a list, we're talking about an authority file. So when I click on the authority files are always in alphabetic sequence. So I'll click down here and I'll go to loan type, click on loan type, and there are my different loan types. But I'd like to add a monthly loan. So I'll click here and type in monthly. Monthly, and I'll say add that. And add this. So there's my monthly loan. I want to add a yearly loan. Yearly loan. Now, these are just names. Monthly is not automatically a 30-day or 28-day or 32-day loan. It's just a name. If you now need to add a number of days to that particular period or to the yearly period, you have to edit that. So you click on, when you go to monthly, you click on the pencil and it says monthly, and it says, all right, the loan period for monthly is 31 days, okay, and the final borrowing date. So if they borrowed a book for 30 days, I want all the books back on the 31st of August. Or I want, regardless of when they borrow a book, okay, I want all the books back on the 24th of December because the library closes after that date. Okay, and then I just go add. And that's set up. So now if I close this and I go back into my yearly loan is 365 days, and my final borrowing date, I don't want any books out past the 24th of December, and I'll add that. Okay, so I've set up a loan type based on monthly, and I've set up a loan type based on yearly. And now what I can do is, when I go back into my schools collection and I'll do a search of cat, because I want to work with the same parameter that I'm working with, the same book. So if I search for cat and I say bring up all my resources that have cat in it, and I'm looking at cat haiku, and I edit that particular record, and now in the record I go to all my copy information, and there's my first copy, which was fortnightly. I've changed my mind. I don't want to make it fortnightly. I'd like to make it monthly. So I'll click on here and there's monthly. Okay, and if you scroll down, I've also got yearly because I've just added that. So I'll say that is a monthly loan, and in that monthly loan the parameters are 31 days. Okay, I did not touch the renewal, so I can go back and I can add a weekly renewal, a monthly renewal, a yearly renewal, a term renewal, and put in the number of days. And so that's how you enter loan parameters for your resources. Okay. Now, the next thing we were talking about when we came across the trying to set up loan limits, we were talking about patrons having loan limits. So we've talked about books and resources having loan limits. We're now talking about patrons having loan limits. So where do I go to set up the patrons loan limit? So let's go across to here to the menu, and let's go down to the patron screen and patron management, and it'll always come up with your parameters. So let me go and find the patron. Find the patron, which is MI, starts with MI. So let's have a look. We'll go down here and we've got Jack Scott. Let's call up that patron. So that patron is in a class grade of year 7. I can click on that and I can change his class grade. But he is a year 7. And the year 7s have a particular borrowing limit. Same as a year 8 and a year 11 and a year 12. They all have borrowing limits. Year 4s, the 5s, the 6s. Okay, staff have loan limits, librarians have loan limits. So every patron has one class grade, and their borrowing limit is determined by their class grade. So where do I find that? Remember I said whenever you click and it gives you a list, it is an authority file. So if you want to find or set the borrowing parameters for a patron, you have to find their class grade. And to do that, you go to the menu, you go to the configuration and authority file editor. You click on the authority editor. Remember, it's alphabetical. Audience, we're talking about class grade. So we click on that and we come down to class grade. When we click on the class grade, and we were talking about a year 7, okay, if you don't have a, if I didn't have a year 7, I could then click here and create a year 7. And once you've created the year 7, you then have to click on the edit. And in the year 7s, okay, in the year 7s up here, you will nominate what their final borrowing date is, when that group expires, how many books they can borrow. They can borrow 5 books for 14 days. They can renew 5 times for 14 days each time. And they can reserve 2 books. Okay, so that's where every patron's limit. So if I add a new patron and I say that he's in the year 7, it will come to this particular screen and it'll grab a loan limit of 5 books. He can borrow for 14 days. He can renew it for 5 days, and he can renew it 5 times, and he can renew it for 14 days. And if you allow him to reserve, he can reserve only 2 books. You can say, no, I don't want him to reserve anything. So the year 7s now can no longer reserve any items. And if that's the case, you just click on this button. Don't worry about the others, just go save. And now that's the new limit. But if you decide, no, I want to be able to allow them to borrow 8 books, they can renew it only twice, and they can renew for 14 days. So now you can go save. And everyone that's a year 7 now has these new parameters. And if you can say, no, the final borrowing date is not the 13th, I really want to make sure that, I want all the books back in the library because I'm going to be doing a stock take. I want them back in the library on the 1st of December. And the expiry date, my recommendation, try and figure out when it is you're going to leave the school, and then just go and put in another 20 years after you leave the school, because this date is almost irrelevant. Okay, so make it some date far in the future so you don't have to worry. The only time that date becomes relevant is if this was a year 12 student. If it was year 12, you don't want them to expire on the 13th of December. You might want to, so let's go and grab a year 12. Okay, so we'll go down to the year 12 group, and the year 12s, I know for a fact, are not going to be coming back into school after the 4th of July or 4th of August, because they then go into holiday period where they're supposed to be revising. So if they borrow any books, I have no way of chasing them. That's the only time the expiry date becomes relevant. And now I'll save that. So what we've taught you is that patrons have a loan limit and books have a loan limit. Now the complication comes. Let's say, for argument's sake, I have a book, and that book is an overnight loan. That's how the librarian has flagged it. Okay, but the patron can borrow the material for 14 days because they're a 14-day limit. How's the system going to manage any contradiction between book limits and patrons' borrowing limits? So let me show you how we do that. Okay, so when I go into my schools collection and I'm looking at Cat Haiku, and on Cat Haiku, someone comes to borrow this particular copy. Okay, we'll grab this copy here, and it's a daily loan limit with no renewal. Okay, which means they can only have it for 1 day. So someone comes and they bring this particular barcode to the desk, and they're going to now circulate this barcode number. It's going to calculate it that it's 1 day. However, the person that they're going to circulate it to, let's call him up, okay, is Johnny Smith, John Smith. He's in year 12. And the year 12 can borrow that item for 14 days. So what is the system supposed to do when you've got an item that says that this item is only an overnight loan, 1 day, but the patron that I've got up here, Johnny Smith, can borrow for 14 days. What do you want the system to do? Well, what we've done is we've designed it and we've said to the system that when the book limit is different to the patron limit, play it safe and go for whichever one is lower. So in this case, because the book is an overnight loan or a daily loan limit, that's 1 day, and the patron is a 14-day patron, please play it safe and only give it for 1 day. Make sense? Great. Now, what happens if the patron that's borrowing the book, Johnny Smith, is a teacher and she would like to have that book for 90 days, for the term or for the year, and you'd like it to be automatic? So when John Smith as a teacher comes to borrow that, and even though it's a 1 day loan limit or a 30-day loan limit or a 14-day loan limit, we know that we want the system to know it's a teacher, so give it to them for whatever period the teacher's loan limit. We want to forget that it's not the lowest. So in that case, when we are setting up a teacher, so as in this case, Johnny Smith, he's a teacher, okay? When we go to his loan limit, and so let's choose a class grade, and we say that this person is a teacher, okay, or yep, they're a teacher. You've got the option of a teacher. How do I make sure that this teacher can borrow anything, even things that are 1 day, for 365 days, which is the year? So what we need to do is we need to go to the authority file. So we click on the menu, we go to the configuration screen, go to the authority file, we'll go to the class grade, okay, and in the class grade, we'll go to the teacher, and let's have a look at it. So we'll go to the teacher, and we can say the teachers can borrow 1,000 books. They can borrow it for 365 days. They can renew 1,000 times. They can renew it for 365 days, okay? Except we say that the teacher's loan limit will override the book. So if the teacher comes across an overnight book, she'll say override it, give it to them for 1,000 days. If it was a monthly loan, override it, give it to them for 365 days. If it was a quarterly loan, override, give it to them for 360. So the override says, I don't care what loan limit the item is, override it. Okay, so when you set up a principal and you have a principal's classification, and the principal says, I want to be able to borrow whatever I want to borrow for 365 days. So you just create a principal's classification or teacher's classification, put a tick in there, and what will now happen is, regardless of the loan limit of the book, when you're circulating, it will automatically, if this is if the patron is a teacher, it'll automatically come here for the parameters and give it to them for 365 days. Fantastic. So we have the first rule in circulation. If the patron and the item loan limits are the same, business happens as usual. If one of them is different to the other, it'll play it safe, and whichever one's lower, it'll automatically go to that. Then the next rule says, yes, but if the teacher is there and the teacher can override whatever loan limit set on the library collection, then just give it to them for whatever the teacher's limit is. All that's very, very well and good, but let me show you something else. What about that? I've got a book here. Okay, so let me just find another record. And here's a book. I've only got one copy. It's called Catch Me When I Fall. Now, this can be a very expensive book. Let's say that this book is so expensive, you paid $500 for this one copy, and you've said that it is a daily loan and there's no renewal on it. All that's very, very well and good, okay, except when the principal or the teacher comes to borrow it, even though you said it's a daily loan limit, it is going to allow them to borrow it for 365 days because that's their parameter, and you don't want that to happen automatically. You want to stop that because you say, as a teacher, when I say daily, I mean daily, and I don't care who you are. So if you want to enforce that, really simple. All you do is you expand the copy information and you set it for daily, and then you say the item overrides whoever's borrowing it. And I don't care if you're a teacher, I don't care if you're the principal. From now on, when anyone comes to borrow this item, because I said the item overrides, that means whatever your parameters is, you can only have this book for daily. Okay, so that's the fourth rule. So let's go through the rules again. If the item loan limit and the patron loan limit are the same, not an issue. If either of them are different, go to whichever one is the lowest. Okay, that's rule number 2. Rule number 3 says yes, but if they are different and the teacher has an override on it, then override the item loan limit and make it available to the teacher for the limit that's set there. The final rule says yes, but before I give it to you, let me see if the librarian has said that the limit cannot be overridden. And so that's what happens here. You will not be able to override it. Okay? However, now that all those rules are set, I've called up Johnny Smith and I want to borrow this particular copy. Okay, when I go and circulate it, it'll work out whatever the borrowing parameters are and the loan date will be automatically calculated. However, what I want to do, I also want to borrow this book. And I say to the librarian, can I please bring this book back? And this is an overnight loan. I'm not to know that, but I say to the librarian, I need to borrow this for the term. Can I bring it back on Friday, the 11th of September? So you can put in any date you like there. And when you do that, if you go ahead and check out a book and there is a date put in here, okay, the due date of the book will now be the date. So that is the final arbiter. Okay, so regardless of all the automatic and all the parameters you put in, as a librarian, you have the opportunity to put in a date and override anything and any of the parameters. So we give you the maximum amount of flexibility to work in an automated mode, but you can bypass all the automation by putting a due date. Now, why do we do that? How many times does a teacher come into the library with a whole bunch of kids and go, Mrs. Smith, we are doing an assignment on dinosaur this term. Can all my students please take their books out and bring it back in 6 weeks' time? And you say, sure. So you just call up circulation, pull up the 6 weeks date, put it in there and say, all of Mrs. Smith's kids, please come to this terminal. And when you borrow, as long as there is a date in here, it overrides all your parameters. And that's the final borrowing date. Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity to allow us to explain borrowing parameters in the SmartSuite library. Thank you.